Hello and welcome to Financial Fix. I'm your host, Teresa McGarry, and on this week's episode of Success Story Spotlights, we have with us Jane Sawyers. Hi, Jane. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. It's nice to see you. I know you're not feeling great, but I really appreciate you taking time to do this interview with me today.
It's good seeing you too. Not a problem.
So can you tell me a little bit about what all was going on when we met? How did we meet?
I do remember. In October, I was diagnosed with endometrial cancer, and I was working at a pain clinic in Kansas City. I had surgery October 12th, and then October 31st, my partner and I decided that we were going to move to Clinton, Missouri to be closer to family, and financially, it was just a better fit. And Jody unfortunately had to continue driving back and forth to Kansas City to continue working because I obviously was off of work for a while, and she needed a oil change. So she randomly just stopped at Christian Brothers on Shawnee Mission Parkway and met with the owner, got the oil changed, and realized that her tires were like beyond needing to be changed. And obviously in Kansas City, winter is coming at the end of October, so we needed to get those fixed quickly, but it was like $600 or something outrageous, and we just didn't have the money. So they put us in contact with you, and that is how we met.
We had a wonderful first conversation, probably lasted 2 or 3 hours, and we were able to set up a payment plan and for you guys to make small payments that were something you could manage towards getting the tires paid off.
We got through the moment of needing the tires, got on that payment plan. I was able to go back to work the 9th of November. I went back early. I went back, like 4 weeks after surgery in comparison to 8 weeks after surgery. They gave me a desk job, so I was back to working. And then I found out that I needed to do chemotherapy, and needed assistance with groceries because obviously I was going to have to take off time from work to be able to do these chemo sessions. And at that point, I was still trying to maintain my job. So Jody and I both were going back and forth to Kansas City to work at the time and looking in Clinton. At that time, I'm like completely oblivious to the fact that I'm going to end up losing my job in December. So that wasn't even on the table yet. So we got help with groceries and gas because gas was $500 a month just to get back and forth every day. I mean, it's a 3-hour drive daily to go, to Kansas City and then back home from Kansas City. We were getting home extremely late. It was rough. And I remember having those conversations with you, like, this has got to end. I cannot continue to go that far, spend this much money, but we were literally just stuck.
You tried to continue working. I remember while you were doing the chemo, you were bound and determined to try and keep working.
Yes.
Go on.
I'm sorry. After working so let me think back. My first chemotherapy session was December 10th, and I continued to do the job that I was doing. I am a medical assistant, so I was working in a doctor's office. I will not disclose the name of that doctor's office because of what happened immediately following. December 20th, I was taken into the office, and they had written me up 3 times in a row for forgetting information, which it would be small things like not writing down a message appropriately or whatever, but they felt the need to write me up, and it was time for us to separate employment. Let's just put it that way. So here I am in the middle of chemo treatments. I just got back to work, and then I completely lose my job, which wasn't a super high paying job, but it was definitely beneficial to the household. And now poor Jody is really stuck. She has no option but to drive back and forth to Kansas City to try to provide the best that she possibly can, and can't get a second job because all of her time is spent on the road going back and forth from Clinton to Kansas City, just trying to keep our heads above water. And we were drowning. While our rent in Clinton was significantly cheaper than it was in Kansas City, we were still very much a 2-income household. And that means that if those 2 incomes are not coming into that household, there is a significant deficit. We were still living paycheck to paycheck when both of us were working. So how are we going to function and survive financially with me not having any income at all? And this was right in the middle of the highest counts in the pandemic. I am a medical assistant, so obviously that means I'm working in a medical setting. My immune system is compromised. So really getting a job in the public was not an option for me at that time. So I had that conversation with you. And it kind of looked like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? There is no place that's going to help me because I don't fit into their boxes. I am a single woman with no children, and I am able to work. I was denied for partial disability. I was denied for unemployment. There were a host of things that happened that helped the financial situation. And I called you, and I think at that point I was just hysterical because I was scared. I mean, I have enough going on, and then you add the money part of it, which isn't something that somebody who is sick needs to worry about, and you kind of talked me through that. You were so very kind. I mean, we would not have made it through this without your help personally and financially. I mean, just being there to talk to me meant everything to me, because that meant I had somebody I could vent to, because Jody, I didn't want her to be that person in that moment. She had enough going on.
Yes, it was pretty stressful for Jody, just trying to figure out how they're going to make ends meet and trying to be, you guys, when we met, you guys were already doing a budget. You were doing really well at doing a budget. There just wasn't enough coming in. And so very, very careful and trying to make ends meet and being very diligent with your money and all of that kind of stuff. And I know she really felt a lot of pressure to try and help make ends meet. But like you said, she was really trapped, because if you spend an hour and a half driving to work all day, drive an hour and a half back, she didn't even have time to look for a different job in Clinton that would have been closer to home, that would have saved a lot of money on gas and travel and wear and tear on the car and stuff like that. Because by the time she got home, how can she do that? And
right.
Yeah, that was tough. And she already felt a lot of pressure, and I'm sure she had been working so hard and very diligent. I know it seems like what I remember you telling me was that she was the one that is the real detail oriented one of the two of you, focused really, really carefully on the budget, and it's reviewed once a week, once a day. It seems like
depending on her mood. I will be honest. We have been together 8 years in September, so budget mindedness was definitely not my thing. It was very much her thing. She says I am very flighty and just kind of go with the flow, and she is definitely not that person. So depending on where she thinks we may be at in our budget, she's looking often, daily. We have meetings once a week to kind of discuss our budget. We always have. That's just how we did our household. Never forget the time that came when the checking account was at zero, and she's looking at the bills and she's like, there's literally nothing I can take out of this. Like, all of these things are important. It's gas, water, electric, rent. I mean, all of those things you have to pay. And because we are single women and we do not have children, there are not services for us. And if there are, remember, we're in a new town and we don't know all of those ins and outs of where you can get assistance. So that was really trying for her. It was really hard on her. And I was going through my own stuff. So I wasn't looking at the budget. I didn't really care about the budget because I was trying to just stay above water spiritually and emotionally myself and physically. I mean, chemotherapy is hard. So she carried a lot on her shoulders. And I'm sure there were conversations between you and her. And I remember right before that cold snap, you know, she had gone to get an oil change that Moneytalk had helped us with, and her battery failed the test.
Yep.
And there was a conversation between you and I. You said, she's driving an hour and a half each way. She's going to go out and that car is not going to start because it's so cold. We didn't even know the battery had an issue. So here we are. What's a battery? $60. We don't have $60. There isn't any money to pull from.
More like 150, but yeah.
Well, okay, even worse. See where I was mentally? I'm like, oh, it's probably whatever amount of dollars. I mean, I had checked out.
Yep. So while it was so stressful for Jody, there were several times where you and I had conversations that weren't financial necessarily in nature, but more, you just needed somebody to talk to, somebody to vent to, that was, I don't know if safe's the right word, but somebody that would be there and be supportive and be listening and let you get that out without having to add stress to Jody. And I know we had a lot of those conversations as well.
Yes. I mean, when you need to vent to someone, you know, ideally that person is somebody you know you can trust, somebody you know isn't going to hold it over your head at a later date, somebody that is going to pray for you, wants the best for you, and isn't right in the middle of your situation. Because the people who are right in the middle of your situation with you are the people who are already stressed about it. I mean, yes, I have my parents, but my parents were super concerned. I have, you know, a best friend that took me back and forth to chemo all the time, but she's right in the middle of it. She was concerned. I mean, not that you weren't concerned, but it's a different, you know what I mean? You don't see me every single day. You don't, you know, you're not the one trying to work every single day it's just a different rapport. And so I knew that you were trustworthy, and I don't trust many people, but I just knew from the moment we started talking that you were never going to throw that back in my face or make me feel bad about needing assistance from, you know, someone. And so I chose you. You were like my batting ring. You were like the person I could just throw it all at. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how to make this better. I don't know what anybody expects me to do, but then I'm concerned about Jody. Like, I don't want to tell her that I'm struggling with the idea of how are we going to make it from paycheck to paycheck, or how is the car going to keep going? And it's not that the car isn't new. It just takes a lot of wear and tear. I mean, it's a lot of gas. It's more frequent oil changes. It's more tire rotations. I mean, all of that stuff comes into play when you're talking about driving that far.
Yeah, it does. And I'm really glad I was able to be there for you when you needed to have those conversations where you just needed to vent and you needed to express your stress and just needed to get it off your chest in a safe environment. And I think we both kind of grew in our faith in those conversations as well. Definitely grew in our friendship.
Absolutely, 100%. I've always been a very spiritual person anyway. But when you throw all of that on top of it, you know, they always say that God doesn't give you more than what you can handle. But I don't believe that. I think that God gives you exactly too much because he wants us to depend on him versus our own ego and strength. And so I really just leaned into that and let it be what it was and let him guide me. And for whatever reason, everything has always turned out okay. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that Money Talk was a God thing. It had to have been. We had never gone to Christian Brothers before. I mean, there were so many things, and it's like he was just like, okay, here's Teresa, and he plopped you right in our path.
Yep, he did. There's so many things that have happened that he's definitely been so in the center of things, like about when Jody's car battery failed the test. And we said, hey, it's that time of year. It's only going to get colder, not better. And if it's struggling to start, she's going to end up stranded. And that's just not okay. And when, I don't remember whether it was you or Jody that called me and told me, but I was out with Jean, taking her to a doctor's appointment in Olathe. And I knew that Jody had an hour and a half drive back home. So it was like, if I go from Olathe over to Jean's to drop her off and then meet Jody at AutoZone so that we can get her battery taken care of, that means Jody's going to have to wait, I don't know, 45 minutes to an hour before I can even get there. And I didn't want her to have to do that and then still have an hour and a half to drive home. But I didn't want Jean to have to wait to get home. And it was like, hey, and I'm like, so I talked to Jean about it and she's like, oh yeah, that's fine. Let's go get her battery taken care of and then you can just drop me off. So I met Jody at AutoZone, which about a mile and a half or so north of where she works and whatnot. And we got a new battery purchased, we got it installed. And so I knew she was going to be safe. And then Jody shared a huge blessing for me and said, hey, you know what? Jean lives in the general direction that I need to go to get home anyway. How about I help you out and I'll take her home for you? And that was, well, it was great. It saved me quite a bit more driving and it was really appreciated. But come to find out, what Jody told me later was the two of them kind of connected. And this is another one of those God things. She and Jean connected in this trip over to Jean's place and found out that the apartment complex that we had about a year ago moved Jean out of is the same apartment complex that you and she used to live in at one point. And so they kind of bonded over this living in the same apartment complex and had a wonderful time chatting about and catching up with different neighbors that you all knew in common. Mm-hmm. And she's like, that was actually kind of a fun thing. It ended up being, I mean, she did it intentionally to help me out and to thank me and to save me a little bit of driving, which was great, but it ended up so much more than that. And it just had to be God right there in the middle of everything. So it's pretty cool.
Agreed. I can't speak for Jody, but I don't think that there's not a whole lot she wouldn't do for you if she could. We've always been the kind of people that we try to give back. Whatever we get, we try to pay that forward. I mean, it's a ride home. It's not a big deal. Just hop in the car. I'll get you there. She's definitely one of those people. So she enjoyed the conversation that she had with the lady. I was obviously at home, so I just know what she told me. She enjoyed the conversation. I mean, I know that we had neighbors in common, like you said, and stuff like that. So it was a little bright spot in her not so great day, I'm sure. Most of her days were not so great when she was there. I mean, she was getting up at 2:30, so in the morning.
And as I recall, it was not a job that she was enjoying. No. or a very good work environment for her either. So once you're able to get your immune system back up and you're healthy enough to get back out in the world. I know there's some things that you're wanting to do that are going to be, I'll let you spill the beans, on some ways that you're hoping to be able to pay it forward and stay involved with Money Talk later on.
Yes, they're big beans. I'm super excited for the time where I can be like, okay, I'm actually doing it. But for now, we'll have to settle for the good news. I am going to go back to school to get my nursing degree and then bridge over to nurse practitioner. And when I do that, I mean, I have a little bit of time before I get there, but that's okay. I'm sure there will still be people in need by the time I get there. Once I do that, I want to donate my time as a nurse practitioner to the community, no matter what community that is, and do health exams, do immunizations if that's what you need. If you need a flu shot, I got your back. Whatever we need to do, but I want to do that through Money Talk. I don't want to do it through another organization. I want to give it back to the organization that helped me and that I will always be grateful for. So that is the plan. Those are the beans.
Well, I'm excited for that too. And I'm sure there are going to be so many clients at that point that are just really like, what day this month is she going to come up? So, and your schedule will probably be booked for that entire day. And I will have to book myself an appointment just so that I can make sure I have a few moments to see you. But I have a feeling you're going to be booked up with one Saturday a month or whatever day that ends up being, when you're able to come up and volunteer your skills and your knowledge and be able to see some of our clients who, for whatever reason, aren't able to get some of the medical assistance that they need otherwise. So I think
well, let's talk about that for a second.
For you.
I am excited for me too, but let's talk about that for a second. I mean, I had insurance and I had ridiculously high copays. And just because somebody is insured doesn't mean that they necessarily have the money to go to the doctor and pay that copay. Well, insurance companies have it to where you can get a free physical. Okay, but what happens if there's something going on? What happens when they have to go to a specialist? Well, then there's another copay. So I want to give back to the people who don't fit in society's boxes of, well, they don't need help. They're fine. They're fully insured. That doesn't mean anything. That does not mean anything in today's society. So I want to work with all people, the underinsured, the insured. It doesn't matter to me. If you're a human being and you have something going on, I want to give back to you because I feel like that's who we should be as human beings. I feel like that's what God wants us to do. I'm not sure where there's a lack in understanding on that, but there certainly is. And I want to be a person to say, I have a skill. Let me help you with your skill. I'm not a great sewer. Oh, you can sew? Perfect. I need a quilt made. You know what I mean? I think that our communities would be so much better if we had people who were willing to give a little bit of time. All it is time. And I think cancer made me realize that we are literally on this planet for 3 seconds. Literally, that's what it feels like when you're staring down that barrel. And it matters what you do with the time that you're here. And you are putting your time, you personally are putting your time into one of the most amazing things that I've ever seen work for me and for other people. And I think it's important to give you a shout out. I mean, I know that this is about your clients being a success, but what about you? You're amazing. The things that you do for people are things that people will never forget. When they are in a moment where they have no place else to turn, you're there. And that means so much. So kudos to you. Shout out to you. You're the star, not me.
Thank you, Jane. You're gonna make me cry.
It's all these hormones. I blame it on the hormones, why I'm like so emotional all the time.
Well, thank you. And I love that, like, when you went to the doctor's office and you had told me a few days before, this is when you're having your scan after your chemo was done. This is when you were having your scan. And so I was like, okay, so I'm praying that day. And it's like, okay, here's my appointment when I get to find out the results. And I remember being a total nervous wreck that entire day. And I think your appointment was, I may have the time wrong, but it seems like your appointment was like at 10 a.m. or something.
Mhm.
And it seems like it was like 1 or 2 in the afternoon. And I'm like, oh no, I'm sure it was bad news. And she just is upset and she is afraid to tell me. And I was just sunk and whatnot. And come to find out, things were just running late, and you didn't get in anywhere close to your appointment time. And
Right.
the appointment itself, I think, took a while, but it was so exciting when you called me, and it was really exciting to hear. And I was extremely grateful and happy for you when we found out that you didn't need to do radiation like you were expecting. That was great. That was wonderful. But honestly, partly, I think the part that stuck out to me the most was when you said, you're the first person I called. And to have that friendship, that bond, that trust, that connection, that I was even on your list of people to call, was just, it meant a lot to me.
Of course you were somebody that I wanted to call. I mean, and it what so previously when you're getting assistance or help through people, you're like, you want to call to be like, hey, you're not going to have to do this for much longer, or they make you feel shamed into, feeling a different way about it. But I legitimately wanted to call you because I was so excited and I knew that you would be genuinely happy for me, and it would have no monetary value for you. It would be, oh my gosh, that's great. You know, you get to move forward in your life, Jane. I knew that it would be a genuine response from you. And I obviously called Jody first, and then you were like the next person. I was like, she's going to be so happy. I have got to call her. And I knew that you had been praying for me and that you were, concerned about it. So I didn't want you still hanging out there because it's like 4 hours past the time I was supposed to be done anyway.
The idea that you didn't need to have radiation impacting how many more months that we would need to make sure that we're covering the rent prior to you getting to the point where you are now, where, okay, now your body's starting to heal and your immune system come back, and so that you can get back out into the community and do those things that you want to do. That honestly never even entered my mind until you pointed it out.
And that is why you were on my call list. That is why that's what makes Money Talk different than other places. It's far beyond an organization to help. I feel like if you're helping someone, you should genuinely care about them, and you just portray that as you walk across this planet, that you're a caring, loving individual. So that's why you were on my list of people to call, because I knew it wouldn't even enter your mind.
You've mentioned connecting with other organizations and not fitting in any box, and some things that make Money Talk different. What other things make Money Talk different? Because to me, I'm just trying to treat people the way that God tells us that we should be treating them, and trying to be a Christian and to let people see Jesus through my actions. And this is definitely God's ministry. And he said, Teresa, you're going to be the one to lead it. And well, let's just say he is qualifying the called, because I was not qualified when he called me, for sure. I have grown so much since this started. This is definitely the Lord's ministry. But I'm trying to do things in the ways that God has said this is the way we should treat people, and the way he tells us. But not having worked with other nonprofits from the perspective of a client, there's several things that you've mentioned to me that make us unique that were a total surprise to me. So can you share some of those things that make Money Talk different than working with other organizations?
Um, of course I can. Let me start off by saying, just because people say that it is a Christian based or Christian run organization does not make that the case. I have been to a couple of places when I needed it in Overland Park. I will not disclose the name of the church that I am speaking of, but just know that it was indeed a church. And on my emergency contact information, I put Jody's name and what the relationship was. And they looked me in my face and told me, "I'm sorry, we can't help people like you, like me." I honestly was so taken aback. I don't even know how God is who led me out of that church before I could say too much, because my heart was broken. Just because you do not agree with the way that somebody chooses to live their life does not mean that God would not want you to help or assist people like that. And I think where Money Talk varies from that is that's never even been a conversation. I don't even know. I mean, maybe you assumed, but I don't even know if that was brought up in the conversation when we were talking. That Jody was indeed my partner. I mean, I'm sure you probably assumed it because we share a car, we shared an apartment. I mean, there's things, but I didn't bring it up on purpose. And I didn't bring it up because of that stigma. I wasn't in a position to be turned down. And I was horrified of being turned down for that, because I had been turned down because of that in the past. There's so many reasons that Money Talk is different, that being one. Also, that you're willing to help people who have jobs. So, okay, you go to an organization, you apply for food assistance or whatever it is, and they're like, "Oh, well, you make too much money." Well, number one, because you're basing it off of my gross income, which is not what I bring home. Let's make that clear. And then you're saying, "Oh, well, I don't have kids, so that's another box I can't check." You're single, so there's another box I can't check. When you have middle class or working class people, there is not a lot of help. And that just because we're working certainly does not mean that there's not going to be a time that something could come up. I mean, it came up for me, and nothing makes me any better or any worse than you. It could come up for you too. I mean, I think a lot of people are a paycheck away from not paying their rent, or a paycheck away from not being able to get groceries. Unfortunately, you don't know what you don't know. And some people don't know how to do a budget. And some people, don't know how to make sure that they're following all the guidelines that need to be followed when you're doing a budget. And Money Talk helps you with that. If you need that, I mean, there were a couple of things in our budget you were like, "Hey, if you maybe tweak it this way," super helpful. You want to teach people how to be self-sufficient and guide people, but there's no shame in that either. When you go apply for government assistance like food stamps and stuff, there's such a stigma and shame that comes with that, because you're 4 cents away from them just completely tearing the rug out from underneath you. And as soon as you get a job, they're taking that assistance away. It doesn't really allow you to truly get back on your feet. And so that's where Money Talk also varies, is like, yes, technically I am released to go back to work on the 15th of June, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to financially be in a position to pay my July rent. I don't know. And so Money Talk comes in and says, I will help you with your July rent so you can get back on your feet. So you do have that moment of being able to know that you don't have to worry about that right now, because what? I might get paid every 2 weeks, but what if they hold out a week on me? No other organizations do that. They don't consider the entire situation. They're just like, oh, she's making money. See you later. That's not how Money Talk works. And I'm so grateful for that, because that is something that people worry about is, well, if I tell them I got a job, I mean, that's where our society is at. If I tell them I have a job, they're going to take my food stamps away. And now I'm not going to be able to feed myself because they've removed it before I'm even to the point to where I can even think about putting groceries back into my budget. Does that make sense?
Oh, totally makes sense. Yeah. You start as soon as you start making a few steps forward, they start pulling the rug out from underneath you. And that's why things in our ongoing support piece, where once we get our own space to be able to do our food pantry, including the toiletries and other basic needs that food stamps don't cover, being able to do the drop and shop with the donated clothing, which I'm sure is going to grow way beyond just clothing, depending on how much space we have. Helping folks that do have little kids with backpacks and school supplies, and some of the vehicle assistance, obviously, and some of those other kinds of things that we're trying to make sure that we do those in a way that doesn't cause the other organizations to start pulling the rug out from underneath you, because you shouldn't be getting off of that other assistance until you are actually up on your feet. And just like you were talking about, you can't just go back to work on June 15th. What if you can't work full time? Because you've been out of work for a while. You've been through a lot, I know that's an understatement, but you've been through so much. Can you really go back to work and work a full day out of the get-go?
No. And that's actually a conversation that I needed to have to you. And now's as good a time you needed to have with you, excuse me. Now's as good a time as any. There's no way I'm going to be able to go back full time. I am going to have to go back part-time and work my way up. There is no way. I mean, I cannot even clean my entire apartment. So to think that somebody is going to be able to just bounce right back and go back to work full time and make full-time money and full-time hours is ludicrous. But even at that, even going back part-time, all those other organizations would have pulled out. Well, because again, I'm single and no children. That doesn't mean that you're in a position to be able to carry the financial load that you were used to carrying when you worked full-time.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
Well, and even when you are able to work full time, there'll still be assistance that I'm planning on providing, because I want you to be able to be in a situation where you can, if there's some things that need to get paid off, because like you said, when you lost your job, you lost your insurance. I don't know, there may be some other things that you need to get paid off and taken care of. I want you to be able to get money put in the savings account or an emergency fund, and so that you have that financial safety net, for lack of a better word, in place. And being able to help with some of those other things is going to help free up your cash to be able to do some of that. And just like you were saying, once you go back to work, a lot of the other assistance goes away. And right now, you are getting food stamps still, correct?
I am.
And that'll probably go away or be reduced.
The second I get any kind of income at all, I guarantee you that, because so in the state of Kansas, it's a little bit different in the state of Missouri, but in the state of Kansas, if you're of working age and able-bodied, they call it an able-bodied adult, you get 3 months. That's it. They cut you off, period. It doesn't matter what you have going on. You're done, because you should be working. In the state of Missouri, it's a little bit different. So they knew my situation. I applied for Medicaid through them. I was denied for Medicaid, but they knew that, they knew I was going through chemotherapy. They knew that there was a medical reason that I was applying for food stamps. So I just sent in my 3-month review, which just means, hey, I might need 3 more months of your assistance. I do plan on getting a job, but I can't do so right now. And they kind of take that into consideration versus Kansas, you are done. They just chop you off right at the knees. And, but as soon as I make any money, because I am an able-bodied adult, they will take them.
Wasn't there something that you were denied because there wasn't enough proof or something like that?
Missouri Medicaid. They requested for medical records showing a need for state for state insurance. The Cancer Center actually sent all of those over, and I got a letter that said there was not enough medical proof that I needed said insurance. Not sure what else they wanted, but that's okay. I mean, and you have to look at it from the view of them. I am a 37-year-old woman who is seemingly healthy. I mean, you can look at me. I mean, yes, I don't have hair right now, but you could look at me and never know prior to the hair loss that there was anything wrong with me. So looks really matter when it comes to getting those extra benefits. Is, well, she's 37, and people just assume that I just don't want to work. That's not the case. And I would say that's probably not the case for most people. It's not. If anyone truly asks for assistance and humbles themselves enough to do it, because there is shame involved around those type of assistances, and there shouldn't be, but there just is. They make you feel that way. They dig into all of your everything business, and then they critique, well, you have 1 penny too much in your checking account, so you can't get this assistance. Or, well, you're 37, you look healthy, why aren't you working? Well, were you fired? Did you quit? I mean, it's just a whole slew of questions that you don't really want to answer. I mean, I don't want to be sitting here in the position that I'm in. And there's the difference too, is like, I didn't just go, let's pick this type of cancer and let's lose your job and lose your cat. And I mean, all of the things that have happened over the course of 6 months. I didn't ask to be here. This is just where I was led and what I needed to go through for whatever reason. And I'm fine with that. But I'm grateful that there are people like you. You restore faith in humanity, no joke. Because there are not a lot of people like you, or that I have run across, unfortunately. So to have that, and I mean, there's things that come up that I don't ever tell you about, financial things. And I mean, I'm just going to be honest, there are, and you've already done so much. You don't want to overuse a resource that has helped you as much as you have. Of course, there are things that come up. We're people, things happen. I had a horrible experience with having my port removed and needed to go and purchase a sports bra so that I could sleep in it. And it was a whole expense and a whole thing, but that was my thing. I figured it out. I didn't need to call you and whine about it. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things that happen. It got figured out. So you do the best that you can. And I think most people are doing the best that they can. So you don't question a person to the point of shaming them almost in order to get the information that you need. If you sit down and you have a conversation with someone like you and I do, it comes out in the conversation. All you have to do is listen. You're willing to listen versus, making somebody fill out 400 pieces of paper and you don't know anything about me. At the end of the day, you still know nothing about my situation, nothing about who I am as a person. And they feel like they reserve the right to judge me about the position that I'm in. If you really just want to help somebody, just talk to them. It's the easiest way to find out things. Things come out in conversations, like the whole bra thing. That wasn't supposed to come out. I wasn't ever going to say anything about it. But through a conversation, it just does.
You had mentioned a couple times how much you appreciated the fact that you never felt like you had to humble yourself or felt shame or felt bad to say, hey, Teresa, I need help with rent or anything like that. And that means a lot, because I don't want you to feel shame. I mean, that's the situation, and that's something that I can help out with. And so that's how we're helping. And it's different than somebody who just out of the blue calls up and says, hey, I need some help with rent. I don't know them. I don't know their situation. Are they just looking for a hand out? Because everything we do is with the intention of being a hand up, with rebuilding self-esteem, self-confidence, empowerment, helping them grow in their faith walk with Christ, and helping them move forward. And so just to hand out rent to somebody, yeah, I need to do some investigation. That's not what we're about, just a handout. But when you call up and say, you know, hey, we needed help with rent, or we're short on gas money, or whatever, I know the situation. I know you guys. I know how you manage your money. I know how you've been very careful with what you have. And I know that when you tell me you need it, it's because you need it. And so I'm really glad, though, that you feel comfortable saying, hey, this is what we need, and that you don't feel like you're ever being made to feel bad about needing to ask.
No, you have never made us feel that way. I think the thing that I feel the most, and this has nothing to do with you or Money Talk, it's just more like, can I just get back to work? You know what I mean? Like, it's just another month has gone by. I'm still not back to work, but you're always there with a guiding hand to say, you got to let yourself heal, give yourself grace, take your time. It's okay. You know, you've been through a lot. And that versus how many jobs have you applied at this week? You know, there's the difference again, is like, I haven't applied at any jobs. I'm not in a position to where I can work this instant. And I can't go back to work until the 15th. And I'm honestly horrified that if I filled out an application today, being such a small town, that they would call me for an interview tomorrow. And then I would have to go through that lengthy explanation of I cannot start work until at least the 15th, and I will need to come back part-time, and all of those things that you don't really want to disclose about yourself already. It's different when you're like, you just lead it into the conversation, and then people don't really know it's being led into the conversation, which is nice, because for me, it's authentic. And it's not like you really ever have to feel shameful or ask for it. You know, so if you're talking to me, like the other day, I ended up being in Kansas City and you were going to mail the rent check, right?
Yes.
I was like, I'm in Kansas City. I can swing by and pick it up if that would be easier for you. And in that conversation, you were like, how are you doing on gas? And how are you doing on food? Is there anything else you need? It just flows easier rather than, hey, by the way, I don't have the money for food. Can you help me with food too? There's something about knowing that there may be a need other than what you're already helping with and guiding that in. Then it's almost like egotistical when people expect you to go, hey, would you mind helping me with food too? When you already know that there's a need. Does that make sense? It almost seems like people enjoy lowering other people to have them ask for the help versus just knowing there's a need and saying, is there anything else I can help you with?
Yeah,
And you always do that.
that makes sense. And there's been times with you and with a couple of other folks too, when there's so much stuff going on that you don't necessarily have the mental space, the emotional space to be able to stop in all of the chaos and the stress and the drama and the health issues, whatever it is that happens to be going on, to say, hey, if I just reached out to Teresa and said, can you help me with XYZ, then this problem would be a little bit better, because you're in the middle of it.
Well, I kind of use the analogy of when someone's in a thunderstorm, you know, there's lightning and then there's thunder and then there's rain and then there's lightning and thunder and rain and lightning and thunder and rain. So when you're in the middle of that thunderstorm, the only thing you're thinking about is staying safe. Well, you can't stay safe and get the help you need most of the time because you're not asking for that, because you're just worried about staying safe from the thunder, lightning, and rain. It's the same thing in life. Things come up all the time and you're just trying to stay safe from them. So to have somebody who will reach out and say, hey, are you doing okay, means everything when you're in the middle of that lightning storm.
So sometimes it seems to be helpful just to be able to say, hey, what's going on? Can you tell me the situation? And I'm not as good as I would like to be at it, but if I haven't heard from you in a while, to send a quick text message or make a phone call and just say, hey, how's it going? What's going on? You know, I'm not going to force you to accept the help. That's something that I want to offer, and let it be your choice.
Well, that comes with empowerment. I mean, when you give someone the choice of, hey, are you doing okay on this? It gives the person you're trying to help the power to say yes or no, I can figure this out, versus somebody who just wants to give you a handout. And that is never what you made it feel like. And that is never what we wanted. We did not want to or expect anyone to help us as much as you have. I am so grateful because it has provided a little bit of breathing space to just be like, okay, we're getting there. There's light at the end of the tunnel. We can make it a little bit longer on the, you know what I mean? You want people to feel empowered by making their own decisions and having a little bit of control. That is probably the hardest part about other organizations, is you're being controlled. They have all the control. Even though you're a human and you don't want to be in the position that you're in, they give you no nudge in the right direction. They don't try to empower you as people or individuals. They just give it to you, expect you to answer their questions. And sometimes, depending on who you are, they don't give it to you at all.
That's probably where a lot of the feeling judged, feeling humbled, feeling the bad, horrible feeling comes from, is them maintaining all of that control and not really letting you have a say in whether or not you get help and how much help you get and how much help you even need, really.
Oh, absolutely. Because then it's like, I will give you X amount. This is all you get. You need me. It's the, you need me to take care of you mentality versus the, how can I help you take care of yourself? Is there anything else I can do to help you take care of you?
I have never heard it put that way. That's powerful.
I mean,
that's a huge mindset change.
You don't want, and unfortunately, I think that because people have lived so long with the mentality of they're taking care of me, that they don't even know there's another side to that. they don't know, or they don't want to know that they can actually empower single mothers, women, men, single dads, all of these people. You can actually empower them to help them and guide them into a way that is authentic and flows better and is so good for your kids and good for the other people in your life. Money Talk does that. You empower people to want to do better, to want to fix whatever is lacking in their budget, to want to have the empowerment to say, I got it this time. Thank you. I really appreciate that offer, but I can do it. I think we will be fine. That's the difference.
That's amazing.
Jane's mom joined us for a moment during our interview, and she wanted to share with us how much Money Talks assisting Jane has also helped them, and how much she appreciated everything that Money Talk has been able to do to help Jane and Jody. Let's take a listen.
Her dad and I just wanted to tell you how grateful we were. I mean, it's just amazing that she got to come down here and be next to us and me help her as much as I could, because if that wasn't the case, I wouldn't be able to go into town every day or stay in town every day. And we just really feel blessed, and thank you so much for your help. We're just really grateful.
Oh, you are so welcome. And I'm glad that she and Jody can be there to help you guys as well. And I'm sure she needed her mama and her daddy through all of this. And it's
I'm sure
a
she did.
blessing to
And-
her to be able to be that close to you guys.
Yeah, it was really a blessing. So we thank you so much, and I will let you go. My hubby and I are going to go out for lunch for our anniversary. So,
Well, happy anniversary.
okay, thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
I think we're running out of time here. And I just wanted to tell you, thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview with me. And I know the enemy has been trying really, really hard to make sure that we were not able to get your story out. For example, the first time we recorded, I messed up and apparently stopped the recording instead of unpausing. And then Jody got sick and you caught what she had. And then, yay, you got your port out, but it was not a pleasant experience. So that caused some more delays, and the enemy is just working really, really hard to make sure that we were not able to get your story out, your success story. And I am so glad that we finally got this recorded and we'll be able to get your story up on the show. So
Me
thank you
too.
so much.
You're welcome.